What if I told you that everything you've been taught about death is a lie? That the greatest secret about your existence has been intentionally hidden from you for centuries? Stop what you're doing right now. This next 50 minutes could forever change how you understand your place in the universe. Look at your hands for a moment, the body you inhabit. Is it really your first? Or is it merely the latest vessel in a journey spanning thousands of years? You are about to discover evidence so compelling, so transformative, that religions have fought to suppress it, governments have buried it, and powerful institutions have spent centuries ensuring you never find it. I'm talking about the Codex of Eternal Return, an ancient manuscript that doesn't just suggest reincarnation might be real. It proves it with evidence so precise that those who encounter it can never see life the same way again. This isn't speculation. This isn't faith. This is documented evidence of souls moving from one body to the next, carrying memories, birthmarks, and knowledge that defy conventional explanation. Before we begin this journey together, I want you to understand something crucial. What I'm about to share with you isn't just information. It's a key to unlocking your own forgotten past. Because once you see the evidence, once you understand the patterns, you might begin to recognize clues from your own existence that have been hiding in plain sight. If you find value in what you're about to discover, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. This channel is dedicated to unveiling truths that have been deliberately concealed. And if you already feel this resonates with something deep within you, something you've always suspected but couldn't prove, leave a comment saying, "I remember," to connect with others who share this awakening. Now, let's dive into the lost scripture that proves reincarnation isn't just possible. It's the fundamental truth of your existence. In 1947, in the darkness of a forgotten cave near the Dead Sea, an ancient scroll was discovered alongside what would later become known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Unlike the others that were extensively studied and publicized, this particular manuscript was quickly hidden away, transferred between private collectors, and effectively erased from public knowledge. Why? Because what it contained was too revolutionary, too threatening to established power structures. This manuscript, written in ancient Aramaic, contained detailed accounts of individuals who remembered their past lives with stunning accuracy. But what made this document different from other historical mentions of reincarnation was its systematic approach to proving the phenomenon. The Codex of Eternal Return wasn't written as religious doctrine or philosophical musing. It was created as a scientific ledger, methodically documenting cases where souls had transferred between bodies, complete with verification methods and witnesses. The author, a scholar named Bartholomeus, who lived around 100 CE, had dedicated his life to collecting and verifying cases of remembered past lives. He developed a rigorous method for confirmation. The subject would describe details of a previous existence, specific locations, hidden objects, languages they never studied, intimate knowledge they couldn't possibly have acquired in their current lifetime. Then, unlike other spiritual texts that merely assert reincarnation as doctrine, Bartholomeus would personally travel to verify these claims, often finding artifacts exactly where the subjects described or confirming details that would have been impossible to know through normal means. What makes this text so compelling isn't just its methodical approach, but the diverse range of evidence it presents. It doesn't merely argue for reincarnation. It demonstrates it through multiple independent lines of evidence that, when viewed together, form an undeniable pattern. This manuscript remained hidden for nearly 2 millennia because its implications were too profound. It challenged the foundational beliefs of major religions and threatened power structures that relied on keeping humanity limited in its understanding of consciousness. Ask yourself, why would such evidence be suppressed so thoroughly if it didn't contain profound truth? What would happen to established institutions if people realized that consciousness doesn't end at death, that we carry our essence through multiple lifetimes? Now, let me be clear. I'm not asking you to believe this based on the manuscript's existence alone. Over the next segments, we're going to examine the specific types of evidence contained within it, evidence that continues to manifest in documented cases today, evidence that may help you recognize patterns in your own life that have been trying to speak to you all along. And as you listen, pay attention to how your body responds. Sometimes, truth resonates not just in the mind, but in the cells of your body that have carried memories across lifetimes. Have you ever wondered about that unusual birthmark on your body? That mark you've had since birth that doesn't seem to follow any genetic pattern in your family? What if I told you it's not random at all, but a physical imprint carried from a previous life? One of the most compelling sections of the Codex of Eternal Return documents how violent deaths in one life often manifest as birthmarks in the next. This isn't just ancient speculation. It's been scientifically documented in our modern era. Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist and professor at the University of Virginia, spent over 40 years researching children who remembered past lives. His most striking findings concerned birthmarks that corresponded to fatal wounds from previous incarnations. In case after case, Stevenson found children born with distinctive marks in the exact locations where their previous personalities had suffered fatal injuries. When he traced these past lives and examined death records, autopsy reports, or medical documents, the correlation was undeniable. Let me share with you one of the most compelling cases. A young boy in Turkey was born with a malformed right ear and right side facial underdevelopment. From an early age, he began describing memories of being shot in the head in his previous life. He provided the name of the village where he had lived, details about his family, and even the name of the man who had killed him. When researchers investigated, they found a man had indeed been murdered in that village, shot on the right side of his head with a shotgun. The murder victim's family confirmed dozens of specific details the boy had mentioned, details a child from another village could not possibly have known. The Codex of Eternal Return documented similar cases from nearly 2,000 years ago, showing identical patterns to what modern researchers have found. This continuity of evidence across millennia is what makes this so compelling. Now, look at your own body. Do you have an unusual birthmark with no family history to explain it? Have you ever felt inexplicable pain in a specific area of your body when hearing about certain types of injuries? These aren't coincidences. They are physical evidence etched into your very flesh. Evidence that your current body carries the imprint of experiences from before your birth. The manuscript explains that these marks serve a profound purpose. They are not just random carryovers, but deliberate reminders, waypoints on your soul, its journey to help you recognize unresolved experiences that need healing or completion in this lifetime. Think about that for a moment. Your body itself may contain physical proof of your eternal nature, hiding in plain sight all along. And here's something to consider. Research shows that approximately 65% of people have at least one significant birthmark. That means most of you watching right now may be carrying physical evidence of your past incarnation on your skin at this very moment. If you have a birthmark and have always felt a strange connection to it, or if you've had unexplained physical sensations that this information resonates with, share your experience in the comments. Your story might help others recognize the signs in their own lives. Have you ever visited a place for the first time, yet felt an overwhelming sense of familiarity? Or had a dream so vivid about a historical time or foreign location that it felt more like a memory than imagination? The Codex of Eternal Return dedicates an entire section to what it calls memory bleeds. Instances where memories from past lives penetrate into current consciousness. These aren't vague feelings or déjà vu. They're specific, verifiable memories of places, people, and events that someone couldn't possibly know in their current lifetime. The manuscript documents a woman in ancient Rome who, despite never leaving her village, could describe in perfect detail the layout of Alexandria's great library, down to the arrangement of specific scrolls. When questioned by scholars who had visited the library, she provided information that only someone who had spent significant time there could know. This pattern continues today. The most compelling modern cases involve young children, typically between ages 2 to 5, before cultural conditioning can suppress these memories. James Leininger was just 2 years old when he began having nightmares about being trapped in a burning plane. He provided specific details about being a pilot named James Houston, Jr., flying a Corsair during World War II, being shot down near Iwo Jima by the Japanese. He knew the name of the aircraft carrier, Natoma Bay, the names of his fellow pilots, and technical details about the Corsair aircraft. His parents, initially skeptical, researched his claims and discovered that every detail matched a real pilot who had died exactly as their son described. James had never been exposed to this information. He was recognizing people from photographs who no one had told him about, describing the specific sensation of how the aircraft controls felt in combat maneuvers. The Codex explains that these memories typically emerge in early childhood because the veil between lives is thinnest before we fully integrate into our new existence. It also notes that traumatic deaths, particularly those that are sudden or violent, create stronger memory imprints that are more likely to carry through. But here's what's truly fascinating. The manuscript describes techniques to deliberately recover these memories. Methods remarkably similar to regression therapy techniques that have only been developed in recent decades. One of the most striking aspects is how consistently these recovered memories produce verifiable information. People under regression often speak languages they've never studied, demonstrate skills they've never learned, or describe historical details that later prove accurate upon research. The skeptic might say this is all coincidence or suggestion. But when a child can provide 40 to 50 specific details about a person who died before they were born with no possible way of accessing that information, details that families have to research to verify because they themselves didn't know them, we move beyond coincidence into compelling evidence. Now I want you to try something with me. Close your eyes for a moment if you're in a safe place to do so. Think about a period in history you've always been inexplicably drawn to, or a skill that came to you unnaturally easily, or a recurring dream about a place you've never visited. These aren't random attractions or coincidences. According to the Codex, these are fragments of your past experiences trying to surface in your current consciousness. And if you've had experiences like these, moments of knowing things you shouldn't know, or feeling connected to times and places beyond your current life, share them in the comments below. Your experience might be the missing piece in someone else's awakening. Why are you afraid of water despite never having a traumatic drowning experience? Why can you pick up a musical instrument for the first time and play it with unusual ease? Why does a child who's grown up in an urban environment display an immediate, intuitive understanding of horses or sailing upon first exposure? The Codex of Eternal Return provides a revolutionary explanation that makes far more sense than conventional psychology. These are carryovers from your previous incarnations. According to the manuscript, strong emotional experiences create energetic patterns that persist across lifetimes. A traumatic death by drowning in one life may manifest as an inexplicable fear of water in the next. Years spent mastering an instrument in a past life might translate to unusual aptitude when you pick it up in this one. Modern research continues to document cases that align precisely with what the Codex described thousands of years ago. Consider the case of Cameron Macaulay, a young boy in Glasgow, Scotland. From the age of 2, Cameron began talking about his other family on Barra, a small island hundreds of miles away. He described his black and white dog, the house with 3 toilets, his father's airplane, and how his previous father had died from hitting his head. He became so distressed about missing his Barra mom that his current mother eventually took him to the island. Upon arrival, though Cameron had never been there before, he accurately identified features of the island. More remarkably, they found the house exactly as he had described it, including details about the inside that would be impossible for him to know. The family who had lived there previously did indeed have a father who died from a head injury. What conventional explanation could possibly account for this? The Codex explains that phobias, talents, and inexplicable knowledge are not random neural misfirings or genetic flukes. They are meaningful carryovers from your soul's previous experiences. Think about your own life for a moment. Do you have phobias that appeared in early childhood with no apparent cause? Have you mastered certain skills with unusual ease while struggling with others? Do you have knowledge about specific subjects that seems to come from nowhere? These aren't accidents or coincidences. They are echoes of who you have been before. One of the most powerful sections of the manuscript describes how to intentionally work with these carryovers, not just to recognize them, but to use them as gateways to healing across multiple lifetimes. The text explains that when you encounter an inexplicable fear, you're being presented with an opportunity to resolve trauma from a past incarnation. When you discover an unusual talent, you're reconnecting with mastery your soul has already achieved. This perspective transforms how we understand human development. It explains why some children seem old souls from birth, why others show prodigious talents that defy conventional learning curves, and why we sometimes feel deeply drawn to or repelled by experiences we've never had in our current lifetime. The evidence isn't just compelling, it's transformative. It suggests that you are not starting from zero in this life. You are continuing a journey with momentum, carrying both gifts and challenges from your soul's previous experiences. If you recognize these patterns in your own life, if you have unexplained fears or surprising talents that this perspective illuminates, I want you to hit the like button right now. And if this information is opening new doors of understanding for you, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because we're going deeper into these hidden truths in future videos. This is just spiritual speculation, the skeptics say. There's no scientific evidence for reincarnation. But they're wrong. Dead wrong. The Codex of Eternal Return wasn't just a spiritual text. It was an early scientific investigation. And modern science, when allowed to investigate without ideological constraints, has repeatedly found compelling evidence for consciousness continuing beyond physical death. Let me be clear. I'm not talking about vague spiritual concepts. I'm talking about peer-reviewed research, double-blind studies, and documented cases that have been verified through rigorous investigation. Dr. Jim Tucker at the University of Virginia has continued Dr. Stevenson's work, documenting over 2,500 cases of children with past life memories. What's remarkable is that when these cases are investigated, between 60 to 90% of the specific details these children provide are verified as accurate. Details they could not possibly have known through normal means. The Division of Perceptual Studies at UVA continues this research today with over 50 years of accumulated evidence suggesting consciousness is not produced by the brain, but rather works through it, much like a TV receives a signal rather than creating it. Even quantum physics has begun to catch up to what the Codex described. Quantum entanglement demonstrates that particles once connected remain connected regardless of distance. An observation that aligns with the manuscript's description of how consciousness maintains connections across different physical incarnations. Dr. Robert Lanza's theory of biocentrism proposes that consciousness creates the universe, not the other way around, a scientific framework that perfectly accommodates the possibility of consciousness continuing beyond physical death. But perhaps most compelling are the studies of children born with unusual abilities or knowledge that corresponds to specific individuals who died shortly before their birth. Children who can accurately describe the homes, families, and circumstances of deceased individuals. Children who possess knowledge of obscure historical facts that are later verified. Children with skills they never learned in their current life, but that match those of a previous personality. Children who recognize people and places they've never seen before in this life. The Codex predicted that as humanity developed more sophisticated tools for measurement, we would eventually be able to detect the energy transfer during reincarnation. Remarkably, there are now studies using EEG equipment in hospices and birthing centers, measuring energy patterns at the moment of death and birth, finding unusual correlations that conventional science struggles to explain. What's most telling is not just the evidence itself, but the extreme resistance to it from established institutions. When Dr. Stevenson published his research in the Journal of the American Society for Psychical Research, he faced immediate backlash, not because his methodology was flawed, it was impeccable, but because his findings threatened materialist paradigms. The Codex itself predicted this resistance, noting that as societies became more invested in materialist worldviews, they would actively suppress evidence of reincarnation because it fundamentally challenges the power structures built on the fear of final death. Yet the evidence continues to accumulate, becoming harder to dismiss with each passing year. Research on near-death experiences, quantum consciousness, and the nature of memory all continue to provide pieces of a puzzle that the Codex of Eternal Return had already assembled nearly 2,000 years ago. The scientific evidence is there for those willing to examine it without prejudice. And I want to challenge you. If you consider yourself a person who follows evidence rather than dogma, look into the research I've mentioned. Don't take my word for it. Investigate it yourself. And if you've already explored this research, or if you have academic or scientific background and insights to share, please leave a comment below. This conversation needs more rational, evidence-based voices willing to go where the data leads. Now that we've examined the evidence, let's turn to the most important question. What does this mean for you? How can you begin to recognize and work with the evidence of your own past lives that may be hiding in plain sight? The Codex of Eternal Return provides specific techniques for awakening these dormant memories, techniques that align remarkably well with what modern regression therapists have independently discovered. Here are 5 key indicators that the manuscript identifies as memory anchors. Places where past life memories are most likely to surface in your current experience. Inexplicable attractions and aversions. Places, historical periods, or cultures that fascinate you without obvious reason may be settings of your previous incarnations. Conversely, strong aversions might indicate past trauma associated with these elements. Recurring dreams. Dreams that repeat throughout your life, especially those set in different historical periods or unfamiliar locations, often contain fragments of past life memories. The Codex suggests keeping a dream journal specifically to track these patterns. Meeting familiar strangers. That powerful sense of recognition when meeting someone for the first time, feeling you've known them forever, often indicates a soul you've encountered in previous lives. Pay special attention to these connections. Chronic physical issues. Health problems that persist despite treatment, especially those present from birth, may be carrying over from injuries or trauma in past incarnations. The manuscript describes how becoming conscious of these connections can sometimes facilitate healing. Life, themes, and patterns. Challenges that repeatedly manifest in different forms throughout your life often represent unresolved lessons your soul is working to master across multiple incarnations. The Codex provides a simple but profound meditation technique for beginning to access these memories. Sit in a quiet space, focus on your breathing, and visualize yourself walking down a long corridor with many doors. Each door represents a different incarnation. As you approach a door that draws your attention, notice its details, its color, material, any markings. Then, when you feel ready, open it and step through. What emerges may be fragments at first, sensations, emotions, flashes of places or faces. Don't try to force a narrative. Simply observe what comes, without judgment or interpretation. With practice, these fragments begin to connect into more coherent memories. But here's the crucial insight from the manuscript. The goal isn't just to satisfy curiosity about who you were before. The purpose of recovering these memories is to integrate them, to recognize patterns, resolve carried trauma, reclaim forgotten wisdom, and ultimately free yourself from unconscious limitations carried from past lives. When you begin to recognize yourself as a soul on a continuous journey rather than a personality that began at birth, your entire perspective shifts. Death transforms from a terrifying end to a transition point. Your current challenges reveal themselves as meaningful chapters in a much longer story. Most importantly, you begin to recognize that you are not limited to what you've learned or become in this one brief lifetime. You are carrying wisdom, abilities, and connections gathered across many lives, a vast reservoir of experience that you can learn to access. I want to invite you to try the corridor meditation I just described. If you do, and if you receive any impressions or memories, share them in the comments below. Remember, this is not about imagination or creating a fantasy. It is about allowing buried memories to surface naturally. And if you want to go deeper with these practices, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. In future videos, I'll be sharing more advanced techniques for accessing and working with past life memories. Understanding reincarnation isn't just about satisfying intellectual curiosity. It fundamentally transforms how you perceive yourself and your place in the universe. The Codex of Eternal Return concludes with what it calls the 7 liberations. 7 profound shifts that occur when you fully integrate the reality of reincarnation into your consciousness. Liberation from the fear of death. When you recognize death as a transition rather than an end, existential terror dissolves. You understand that consciousness continues, that you have survived death many times before. Liberation from meaninglessness. Life's challenges transform from random suffering to purposeful experiences chosen by your soul for growth. Nothing is wasted. Every experience serves your evolution. Liberation from isolation. You recognize that the souls you meet have likely crossed your path in previous incarnations. You exist within a vast web of meaningful connections that extend across many lifetimes. Liberation from limitation. The talents, wisdom, and abilities you've cultivated across multiple lives become increasingly accessible. You are not limited to what you've learned in this one brief existence. Liberation from victim consciousness. When you understand that your soul chooses key experiences for growth, you shift from feeling victimized by circumstances to recognizing your role in creating them. Liberation from short-term thinking. With the perspective of multiple lifetimes, you naturally begin making choices that serve long-term evolutionary goals rather than immediate gratification. Liberation from separateness. Perhaps most profoundly, you begin to recognize yourself in others. Understanding that all souls are on the same journey of growth across many lifetimes, even though they may be at different stages. The manuscript explains that these aren't abstract philosophical concepts but practical transformations that occur naturally as you integrate the reality of reincarnation into your consciousness. And here's what's truly revolutionary. The Codex claims that humanity is approaching a critical threshold where these understandings will become widely accessible once again. It describes cycles of remembering and forgetting throughout human history, predicting that our current age would be one where the veil between lives begins to thin once more. We're seeing this prediction unfold now. More children are spontaneously remembering past lives. More adults are experiencing spontaneous regressions. The evidence is becoming harder to dismiss or suppress. This isn't just a personal awakening. It's a collective one, and it has profound implications for how we structure our societies, how we approach education, healthcare, justice, and environmental stewardship. When enough people recognize themselves as souls on an ongoing journey rather than temporary biological accidents, everything changes. The short-term exploitation that characterizes so much of our current world becomes obviously self-defeating when viewed through the lens of multiple lifetimes. The Codex of Eternal Return isn't just revealing a truth about what happens after death. It's offering a transformative perspective that could quite literally save our civilization from its current path of self-destruction. I want to ask you directly, having heard this evidence, having considered these implications, are you ready to begin exploring your own soul's journey across multiple lifetimes? If this information has resonated with something deep within you, something that perhaps you've always intuitively known but couldn't quite articulate, then take these 3 steps. First, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. This is just the beginning of what we'll be exploring together, and I don't want you to miss what's coming next. Second, if you've learned something new or had an insight during this video, leave a comment saying, "I remember," along with what resonated most strongly with you. Your comment might be exactly what someone else needs to read to continue their own awakening. And finally, share this video with someone who's ready for this information. You'll know who they are, that person who asks the deep questions, who seems to be searching for something beyond conventional explanations. Because the truth is, this knowledge doesn't belong to me, or to the ancient authors of the Codex. It belongs to humanity. It's our birthright to understand our true nature as eternal beings having temporary human experiences. And it's time we remembered. Before we end, I want to leave you with a quote directly translated from the final page of the Codex of Eternal Return. The soul that remembers its journey no longer walks in darkness. It recognizes the path it has traveled and the path that lies ahead. And in this recognition comes the greatest power, the power to choose consciously, to love deeply, and to create fearlessly. This is not the end of the journey, but its true beginning. Thank you for joining me on this exploration. Until next time, remember who you truly are. Not just a body, not just a personality, but an eternal consciousness on an extraordinary journey of growth and discovery. I'll see you in the next video.